Morning arrives late in Hive Tarsus, but the smoke keeps schedule. In Shrine Nave 47, incense threads through ventilation grills with administrative punctuality, braiding sanctified oils with industrial vapors. Worker penitent Jorik clutches stim ration token 4471C while whispering the litany of small endurances. The queue shuffles forward beneath a cracked aquila. Each breath tastes of pennies, burnt resin, and the metallic tang of dull feed additives cycling through atmospheric processors. "Grant me numbness for another shift," he murmurs. "Grant me strength for another dose." Here is the thesis, stated without ornament. In a civilization that cannot deliver safety or salvation, chemical relief has become the only prayer that produces measurable results. The Imperium's promises are distant. Its chemistry arrives on schedule. It calms the hand, steadies the sight, shortens the night. We define narcotics expansively because the Imperium does. Obscura for the dreaming poor, Amasec for the promoted and punished, Recaf to keep production lines singing, sanctified unguents to quiet wounds after Medicae hours end, combat stims for regiments and their shadows. Even dull feed lacing hab water represents municipal courtesy, compounds that lower voices, smooth quarrels, lengthen obedience. Administrative codes make piety legible. Op Red 141 hangs in Arbite's precincts like prayer on official parchment. Temporary moral anesthesia, authorized for civil cohesion. Tithe classification, sequim ferries. Chemicals of morale significance, past audits and into shrines, barracks, canteens. Depot 11 lists rolling backlogs of Vitae 7 ampules, shortages measured not in compassion, but throughput and graves averted. The shrinekeeper's censer swings with metronomic precision, dispersing acrita-laced vapors calculated per congregation density. Behind the altar, the authorization bears administratum seals countersigned by Ministorum Sub-Prior Kellach. Moral anesthesia. Mercy measured in milligrams. Salvation administered through atmospheric saturation. This births metabolic citizenship. Your tolerance determines your passport. Medice. Test the rate at which your pulse forgives insult. How quickly tremors recede after injection. How long you labor before vision ghosts. The figures root you into tiers, 2 needle, 3 needle, 4. Pay grades with matching rations, housing nearer or farther from water mains. Those who flush and faint face reassignment until debt schedules correct them. Jorik reaches the dispenser, a shrine-blessed device humming litanies while calculating his chemical allocation. Tolerance level, Gamma 7. Productivity. Rating. Adequate plus. The machine's blessed oils anoint his palm as it delivers pharmaceutical communion. He knows the catechism of dosing as well as any saint's life. He expects distribution, not rescue. At the shrine door, he pinches a spent aloe stick from the gutter and kisses it for luck. The taste lingers on his tongue. Ash and alkaloid, incense and industrial solvent, faith and opiate, indistinguishable. In the 41st millennium, this is the only sacrament that arrives punctually, the only mercy that functions as advertised. The smoke dissipates, the shift begins, the chemical governance continues, precise and relentless as imperial doctrine itself. Numbers describe faith more precisely than sermons. Hive Tarsus allocates recaf by mathematical liturgy, 1.3 cups per worker per 12-hour shift, doubled during quota surges, tripled before levy announcements. Obscura seizure rates correlate inversely with industrial output. When confiscations drop 12%, productivity climbs 8% within the week. The administratum logs this correlation without condemnation. Confiscated product becomes regulated solace, repackaged and redistributed through ministorum channels. Amasec flows as wage supplement calculated at 0.3 liters per hazard point accumulated, redeemable only at sanctified dispensaries. Shrine oil allocations follow precise formulas. 15 milliliters of Akrita-laced incense per parishioner during standard services, doubled for conscription ceremonies, quadrupled during blackout drills. The ledgers carry a consoling euphemism: palliative subsidies. These expand in perfect proportion to casualty projections. Sector Cadia reports 340% increase in chemical disbursements correlating with 67% casualty rates. Armageddon theaters consume stims exceeding ammunition by tonnage. After industrial accidents, subsidies climb 27%. Confessions and shift adherence follow within days. Relief functions as lubrication, not charity. The supply chain spans systems like a chemical pilgrimage. Agri-World Kelos 9 cultivates poppy analogues under ecclesiarch agricultural exemption, fields blessed by Cardinal Voss as crops of compassion. Raw alkaloids travel under tithe, classification CQuim, chemicals of morale significance, sliding through audit stacks with the solemnity of relics. Refinery shrines on Forge Worlds render resin into incense bricks and injectable ampules. Tech priests calculating narcotic concentrations while choristers chant dosage hymns. Port archives show sequim, manifests passing unremarked, stamped by the same servitors counting coffin shipments and relic crates. Sacred oils emerge, sanctified and measured, packaged with purity seals and dosage instructions written in high Gothic prayer script. Here crystallizes the core contradiction. The imperial creed condemns weakness, preaches strength through suffering, demands purity of flesh and spirit. Yet, canon law authorizes liturgical sedation for the spiritually weak in service of duty. Astra Militarum catechisms denounce addiction while regimental planning budgets frenzen at 2.7 ampules per expected casualty. Detoxin kits at 0.4 per survivor. The contradiction operates as budget policy, not theological debate. The economic trap tightens with mechanical precision. Chemical enhancement increases productivity threefold. Stim-boosted workers process triple quotas. Obscura-calmed populations generate fewer incidents requiring Arbeits intervention. But enhancement costs consume 40% of wages through direct purchase, voluntary tithes, and medical clearance fees. Worker penitent Jorick exemplifies the mathematics. Stim allocation costs 127 Throne-Geld per cycle. Wages total 310 Throne-Geld. Housing and food consume 201 Throne-Geld. The deficit accumulates as bonded labor extensions. Workers cannot afford to stop. They cannot afford to continue. Chemical citizenship becomes chemical bondage. Depot 11 anchors this system from Tarsus Port's administrative sector, processing sequim shipments from 17 systems. Its vitae. 7 backlog governs clinic hours, guard readiness, shrine incense potency. When Depot 11 stalls, everything downstream compensates. Higher Akrita concentrations, stronger recaf, more vapor of peace on patrol. The city breathes chemicals like a lung assigned to the Emperor's work, inhaling obedience, exhaling quota. The numbers confirm the system functions. The smell reveals what it costs. Cathedral archives tick like factories, servitors copying sermons in climate-controlled scriptoriums where vellum bears the weight of centuries. The words remain unchanged since M36. Condemnations of vice, exhortations to purity, warnings against weakness of flesh. Yet, marginal annotations tell different stories. Crimson ink authorizes exceptions for the spiritually weak in service of duty. Sub-Prior Kellach's precise hand adds clarifications. Temporary relief permits sustained devotion. Cross-references to Op-Red 141 appear like liturgical citations. The ecclesiarchy maintains 2 ledgers. One speaks canon, the other calculates dosage. The anodyning of the meek transforms pharmaceutical intervention into sacrament. During evening services, priests distribute cotton wadding soaked in sanctified oils containing opiate resins and proprietary anesthetic akrita. The ritual blessing legitimizes what Medicae would call sedation. Confessor Thane explains without apology, pain distracts from prayer. The emperor deserves focus uncompromised by mortal suffering. Penitents press wadding to temples and gums. Relief flowers within minutes alongside heightened spiritual receptivity. The nave deepens with smoke. Bones ease. Grief quiets enough for proper responses. Dry observation from the archive keeper. The emperor's silence is best heard through a wall of smoke. Refinery shrines manufacture that wall under direct ministorum oversight. Tech priests calculate narcotic concentrations while choir servitors chant dosage hymns. Incense recipes vary by congregation size and ceremony type. Lighter concentrations for morning labor services, heavier doses during conscription announcements. Shrine Master Volk measures akrita with Medicae precision, explaining that proper liturgical sedation requires pharmaceutical knowledge blessed by theological authority. The distinction matters for audits, not chemistry. Sequim tithe crates arrive like reliquaries. Seals break with blessings. Yield logs beside attendance records. Sanctity extends into enforcement. Enforcers carry baton-mounted microsensors dispensing vapor of peace during processions. Brass aquilus concealing atmospheric anesthetics, calibrated to crowd density. During recent Festival of Martyrs, a malfunctioning sensor released triple-strength vapors. 17 citizens collapsed in religious ecstasy. Sector 7 productivity increased 12% the following week. The incident report classified this as enhanced spiritual communion, not chemical accident. Indulgence Low completes the circuit. Sold from shrine lockboxes, each stick bears ministorum stamps, certifying blessed tobacco mixed with mild euphoriants. Prayer script packaging reads, "Smoke rises as prayer, peace descends as grace." Sales fund poor relief while providing regulated mood stabilizers. Citizens purchase salvation measured in grams, packaged with theological legitimacy. The contradiction operates as policy, not crisis. Different ledgers track different truths. Confession booths record dose alongside sin, 2 drops for blasphemy, 4 for bereavement. Batch books list akrita lots, blessed for op-red contingencies. Archive keeper Mordian maintains both records, his left hand copying condemnations of vice, his right authorizing chemical distributions. He calls this practical theology. The emperor provides strength to the strong. For the weak, he provides other mercies. Doctrine adapts to necessity with bureaucratic flexibility, folding chemical reality into sacred text without acknowledging the stretch. The ministorum becomes the Imperium's largest distributor of controlled substances under pastoral care. Faith becomes chemistry. Chemistry becomes faith. The theological framework stretches to accommodate pharmaceutical governance, while sermons against weakness echo unchanged through halls thick with sanctified smoke. Dawn on Level 47 announces itself with klaxons and chemical compliance. Dull feed water gurgles through communal taps at precisely 0500, cloudy with mood suppressants calibrated at 0.3 parts per million. Enough to shorten arguments without triggering Medicae alerts. Worker penitent Jorik drinks because refusal flags productivity variance reports. His wife Mira disputes recaf rationing with measured irritation rather than rage. Their son Kyle accepts gruel portions without tantrums that plagued pre-feed generations. Arguments about bunk assignments end mid-syllable. Chemical citizenship begins with breakfast water that makes dissent less appealing than silence. The recaf queue snakes through Shrine Nave 47, ration tokens doubling as prayer slips bearing yesterday's productivity metrics. Jorik's token reads Gamma 7/adequate plus. Chemical tolerance cross-referenced with output ratings. The dispenser weighs his metrics and drops a paper thimble of black stimulant. Higher quotas earn thicker pores. Lower ratings receive synthetic substitutes that taste like burned plastic. Q Supervisor Vance stamps each token with blessing oil while checking clearance codes. A catechism scroll reads, "Industry honors him." Chemical access ties directly to imperial worth. Produce more, dose higher, survive longer. Mid-shift brings Vitae 7 clinic rounds, Medicae servitors pushing stim boosters before hazardous operations. Jorik's crew faces molten slag processing. Pre-exposure injections reduce accidents 40% according to posted statistics. 2 milliliters for standard workers, 3 for gamma-tier tolerance, 4 only with overseer authorization. The needle finds his vein while he recites the litany of acceptable risk. Accidents drop temporarily as enhanced reflexes compensate for industrial hazards, then surge as tolerance builds and dosage requirements climb. The mathematics are institutional. Controlled casualties cost less than uncontrolled ones. Line Violet operates through ductwork between Underhive and Hab blocks, a black market network managed by Guild Factor Thorn with Sub-Prior Kellock's tacit blessing. The arrangement functions through deliberate oversight gaps. Enforcers patrol surface routes, while contraband flows through maintenance tunnels classified as utility corridors. Jorik watches his neighbor trade Indulgence Elo for child antibiotics, the exchange technically illegal but systematically tolerated. Guild factors pay shrine tithes. Sub-priors authorize pastoral flexibility. Enforcers receive enhanced recaf rations. Everyone benefits from controlled illegality that functions as systemic pressure valve. The tolerance ladder climbs with each chemical salvation. Morning dull feed requires higher concentrations monthly to maintain compliance as bodies adapt. Recaf doses strengthen to preserve productivity effects. Stim boosters escalate to overcome accumulated resistance. Jorik remembers when 2 drops of Akrita eased shift pain. Now he requires 4 drops, soon 5. Each mercy demands greater debt. Evening calculations reveal the economic trap's precision. Stim allocation: 127 Throne-Geld, enhanced recaf. 43 Throne-Geld, shrine offerings. 31 Throne-Geld. Line Violet supplements, 89 Throne-Geld. Total chemical expenses, 290 Throne-Geld against 310 Throne-Geld wages. Food and housing consume the remainder through credit extensions binding him deeper into the system. At confession, Confessor Thane administers Akrita wadded cotton before hearing sins, explaining that chemical clarity improves moral focus. Jorik confesses growing dependency while experiencing pharmaceutical peace that makes judgment feel like relief. The booth reeks of sanctified oils and industrial solvents. His penance involves increased shrine attendance, deeper chemical integration with imperial citizenship. Metabolic citizenship reveals its architecture through lived experience. Chemical tolerance determines social position, productivity. Metrics govern access. Debt bondage ensures compliance. Astra Militarum doctrine reduces courage to dosages. Field manual. 18 farm catalogs combat pharmaceuticals with liturgical precision. Pain suppressants to maintain function during trauma. Frenzone variants calibrated to enemy type. Detoxin kits for chemical warfare. Anti-psych agents to quiet what returns from the warp's edge. Each compound bears imperial approval stamps beside dosage prayers. At Siege Line Lask, the 47th Tarsus Regiment demonstrates practical theology. Rosaries hang beside auto-injectors on flak vests, sacred beads counting prayers while chemical dispensers measure salvation in milliliters. The command bunker echoes with doctrinal dispute. Medicae Vec argues with Commissar Thane over injection protocol during pre-assault preparations. Needle before prayer. The Medicae insists, gesturing at trembling troopers. Frenzone 7 steadies hands for proper devotions. Thane demands spiritual precedence. The Emperor's blessing sanctifies pharmaceutical intervention. They compromise on simultaneous administration. prayer script printed on auto-injector labels, blessing and dose delivered together. The Emperor protects. The Commissariat ensures men are properly medicated to receive that protection. Depot 11's Vitae 7 shortage forces field expedients revealing system fragility. Ampoule reuse spreads infection through entire squads as sterilization protocols collapse under supply pressure. Friendzone miscalculation from diluted batches triggers friendly fire incidents. F9, righteous triples. Aggression but narrows vision, turning gun lines into spears that cannot hold formation. Infection rates climb alongside casualties while Medicae boil glass in mess tins between barrages, rubber seals failing under repeated use. Veterans whisper the red rule like forbidden catechism. Never enter combat without the needle. Never return with two. The first clause ensures survival through opening minutes when unenhanced soldiers die fastest. The second enforces resource discipline. Hoarding stims during retreat earns summary execution from commissars. In practice, it mandates desperate charity and calculated sharing. Veteran Sergeant Kane explains the mathematics. You spend enough courage where the Emperor can see it, or someone spends it for you. Anti-psych agents, quietus, nocturne, and crueler sap, paper over nights when memories refuse suppression. Come down schedule like prayers. Detoxin kits promise soft landings from Friendzone cliffs. Sometimes they deliver, sometimes they reset cycles faster. Form 7 Q tracks, pharmacological expenditure. Per expected casualty, spreadsheet piety forecasting ampule costs of taking hills. The moral cost crystallizes in regimental confessions. Trooper Voss admits he cannot feel the Emperor's presence without chemical numbness, steadying his hands. The needle brings him closer, he confesses, while requesting stronger doses. Without it, prayers feel empty. Others echo similar testimonies: pharmaceutical faith replacing organic devotion, chemical communion substituting spiritual connection. The chaplain absolves them while noting increased akrita requirements in pastoral reports. Institutional logic operates without sentiment. Stims extend duty cycles, suppress trauma responses, maintain combat effectiveness through conditions breaking unenhanced minds. The 47th Tarsus achieves 93% combat readiness through chemical support versus 67% for unenhanced regiments. Statistics justify programs, confessions reveal costs. Soldiers unable to pray without needles, fight without stims, or sleep without sedatives. They hollow the men who depend on them. Adeptus Arbits. Precinct 47 operates according to Codex Pacifier. 12.4. Atmospheric intervention preceding kinetic response. Proctor Kellack reviews riot suppression protocols while servitors project compliance curves mapped against chemical dosages. The doctrine begins at municipal infrastructure. Dull feed water main manipulation authorized during public gatherings, concentrations escalating from baseline 0.3 parts per million to crisis level 2.7 parts per million within minutes. Hab Block 9's primary valve, designated DF47/9, bears red identification ribbons for rapid deployment. The first cordon operates through plumbing, not personnel. Vapor of peace deployment follows standardized atmospheric calculations. VOP3 canisters slot into street diffusers calibrated for Hive wind patterns, anesthetic plumes pooling at knee height to reach lungs before panic reaches fists. The Enforcer Batten Mark 9 integrates sensor cores following Ministorum incense specifications. Brass Aquilas concealing chemical dispensers operated by thumb switch toggles. During recent Festival of Martyrs procession, Enforcer Vance demonstrated crowd management through controlled vapor release, citizens experiencing heightened religious receptivity alongside enhanced compliance with patrol directions. Elite Enforcer squads circulate rumors about slot microdosing, slivers for enhanced reflexes during corridor operations. Officially proscribed under Lex Imperialis regulations, unofficially classified as field testing under controlled supervision, with sealed proctor authorization. Enhanced response times improve 40%. Accuracy ratings climb 60% during high-threat engagements. Side effects accumulate in medical files. Hyperaggression episodes, memory blackouts. Tremor conditions requiring chaplain blessing and Medicaid supervision. The contradiction operates through administrative channels, slot logged as confiscated contraband, while dosage records track evidence analysis consumption. Op-Red 141 authorization hangs in Kellock's office like devotional scripture. Temporary moral anesthesia, authorized for civil cohesion. During blackout drill preparations, he signs deployment orders for atmospheric dispersal units and water main chemical adjustment. The paperwork transforms sedation into administrative procedure. Citizens don't receive drugs. They benefit from environmental mood stabilization. Protests don't face suppression. They encounter enhanced pastoral care delivered through ventilation infrastructure. Load sheets cross the proctor's desk, revealing CQIM shipments diverted from depot. 11 to Precinct 47's evidence lockers, then redistributed to atmospheric control systems. Guild Factor. Thorne's requisition signatures appear alongside Sub-Prior Kellock's blessing stamps. The same substances flowing through Line Violet's black market networks now supply official enforcement operations through different bureaucratic channels. Paper trails follow property transfer logic. Confiscated chemicals become law enforcement tools through authorized redistribution. The moral inversion operates with institutional precision. Law enforcement doesn't make citizens good. It helps them feel insufficiently bad to rebel. Enhanced dull feed reduces complaint frequency 37% while maintaining productivity quotas. Vapor of Peace creates positive emotional associations with authority presence. Citizens experience law enforcement as relief rather than oppression. Chemical comfort replacing fear-based compliance. The infrastructure prepares for convergence. Hab Block 9's valve system connects to remote operation capabilities from Precinct Command. Dull feed concentrations controlled through servitor-operated mixing protocols. Recent modifications bear Mechanicus blessing runes and Arbite's authorization seals, positioned for crisis-scale deployment when atmospheric management becomes atmospheric control. Guild of Apothems operates from Administratum Sector 12, controlling legal distribution through tithe classifications that transform pharmaceutical governance into religious obligation. Tithe Master Volk explains CQIM designation with bureaucratic precision. Chemicals of morale significance. Substances essential to spiritual welfare and civil function. The phrase remains deliberately elastic, passing audit requirements while accommodating operational flexibility. Obscura flows as contemplative aids. A Masek becomes ceremonial spirits. Combat stims transform into devotional enhancers. Each reclassification carries imperial approval stamps and ministorum blessing seals. Illegality survives by learning the liturgy. Line Violet launders contraband through the same tithe classifications designed to track legitimate chemicals. Raw Obscura, smuggled from agri-worlds, receives CQIM certification through Guild Factor Thorne's arrangements with Sub-Prior Kellock. The ledger reveals the financial ecosystem. 17% kickbacks to shrine authorities for pastoral oversight. 12% protection fees to Enforcer Precinct 47 for evidence processing delays, quotas indexed T-Nunti. Administratum harvest projections and casualty forecasts. The black market operates as sanctioned pressure valve, illegal distribution channeling through legal frameworks via administrative interpretation. CQIM 77 manifest details the approaching shipment, 47 tons of processed alkaloids. Accreta concentrates, synthetic euphoriants, and detoxin supplements bound for Tarsus Prime. Standard delivery coordinates with shrine service rotations. clinic resupply cycles, and enforcer patrol allocations. The cargo represents 3 months of chemical citizenship for 17 million souls, breathing recycled air through pharmaceutical governance. Solar flare warnings disrupt the calculation. Astropathic communications predict electromagnetic interference affecting power grid stability, prompting citywide rationing protocols. Lifts stall between levels. Atmospheric processors reduce to emergency settings. Depot security systems default to lockdown configurations. CQIM 77 delays. While Tarsus infrastructure prepares for systematic failure, chemical supply chains vulnerable to celestial interference. Tarsus Arbites precincts schedule op red. 141 drill to coincide with delayed delivery. Contingency planning for dependency management during supply interruption. Proctor Kellack signs atmospheric dispersal authorizations while calculating dull feed concentration increases to compensate for delayed stim distributions. The drill becomes operational preparation. When chemical flow stops, administrative anesthesia begins. Vapor of Peace deployment maps overlay population density charts. Water main adjustment protocols activate through remote servitor control. The nested question crystallizes through administrative convergence. Is chemical flow stabilizing the hive, or is the hive designed to require it? Guild records show tolerance climbing systematically across demographic categories. Baseline dull feed concentrations increase annually. Akrita requirements double every 14 months. Stim allocations expand to maintain equivalent productivity effects. The system breeds its own necessity. Each chemical salvation creates greater chemical need. Each administrative mercy demands stronger intervention. Depot 11 prepares contingency stockpiles while calculating rationing during extended delays. The mathematics reveal institutional truth. Tarsus exists as chemical dependency scaled to hive proportions, 17 million souls breathing pharmaceutical governance disguised as atmospheric management. In the factor halls, schedules promise relief before darkness. Schedules often lie. In Tarsus, lies are called protocol. The answer awaits in approaching blackout, when power fails and chemistry becomes the only light remaining. 2,347 hours. Solar flare impact cascades through Tarsus power grid like fire through prayer paper. Electromagnetic pulse trips substations. Lifts stall between levels with citizens trapped in vertical coffins. Emergency lighting flickers. Amber then dies. Depot 11's security gates slam shut automatically. Servo skulls broadcasting lockdown protocols, while CQIM 77 shipment sits 47 kilometers away in orbital holding patterns. The hive breathes darkness, while withdrawal begins. Op-Red 140. One authorization proceeds regardless. Proctor Kellack's contingency orders activate through backup Vox channels. Hab Block 9's valve DF47/9 opens to maximum dull feed dispersion, flooding municipal water with sedatives calibrated for panic suppression. Vapor of Peace units deploy at 17 major intersections. VOP-3 canisters releasing anesthetic plumes that pool knee-high in corridors. The chemistry flows while shipment stalls. 17 million souls medicating with reserves while craving what cannot arrive. Withdrawal symptoms ripple through the population like infection through wounds. Stim-dependent workers collapse at production stations, hands shaking too violently for precision tasks. Children cry for obscura-laced lullabies their mothers cannot provide. In Shrine Nave 47, Confessor Thane swings his censer in desperate arcs, unaware that supply substitutions have doubled Akrita concentration. Depot 11's shortage forcing Medicaid-grade anesthetics into liturgical dispensers. The brass Aquila breathes narcotic clouds thick enough to taste. Line Violet Courier. Vex, experiencing obscura withdrawal, stumbles into concentrated chemical plume outside the shrine. Pupils flood silver as spook contamination triggers micro-warp breach. Reality becomes permeable, where chemistry meets psychic vulnerability. Emergency lighting strobes in patterns following no electrical logic. A child watches walls breathe with architectural lungs. Whispers emerge from ventilation systems, speaking languages predating Imperial Gothic. Enforcers onslaught microdoses respond with predatory efficiency, enhanced reflexes interpreting crowd movement as threat vectors. They strike too hard, move too fast, battens cracking skulls with mathematical precision while dispensing vapor of peace. Concentrations exceeding atmospheric safety limits. Bodies accumulate at clinic entrances faster than triage protocols accommodate. The air itself becomes narcotic. Citizens breathe pharmaceutical governance until oxygen becomes secondary to alkaloid content. Hypoxia and terror create unnatural stillness, not obedience but biological shutdown, the crowd going quiet from suffocation rather than compliance. The hive exhales one final chemical breath. 2,359 hours. In absolute darkness, Tarsus settles into silence that smells like industrial solvents and feels like mercy. Administratum auditors arrive at 0400 hours with clipboards and chemical tolerance built through decades of breathing incense-tainted air. Senior Auditor Voss inhales Tarsus atmosphere without protective equipment. His lungs adapted to alkaloid concentrations that would incapacitate unenhanced personnel. Servoquills sketch casualty curves while robes, stiff vike with starch and ash, rustle through corridors where vapor of peace still pools in stairwell corners. Form Mort 47. B processes 17 deaths as respiratory complications secondary to atmospheric irregularities. Incident Log HNC 9/2347A reclassifies 43 injuries as crowd-induced panic during emergency procedures. The line violet couriers, spook contamination, and 2 additional psyker manifestations receive clinical notation. Anomalies contained and processed per Hereticus guidelines. Each euphemism carries imperial approval stamps, converting pharmaceutical catastrophe into administrative routine. Op-Red 141 Directive receives the crucial validation. Protocol compliant. Proctor Kellock's atmospheric dispersal authorization followed proper channels. Vapor of peace deployment matched approved concentrations. Dull feed valve activation occurred within regulatory parameters. Depot 11's supply failure earns classification as contributing factor within acceptable parameters. The audit language transforms crisis into compliance, failure into acceptable variance. The reframing twist crystallizes through institutional documentation. Narcotics aren't tolerated vice requiring suppression. They represent governance instruments requiring calibration. Moral anesthesia describes policy as pharmaceutical intervention, mercy as measured dosage. The Administratum's lexicon converts chemistry into statecraft. Sedation becomes pacification. Addiction becomes dependency management. Overdose becomes enhanced compliance. Callback revelation emerges from archive cross-reference. The anodyning of the meek ritual employs identical phrasing to Op-Red 141 authorization. Temporary relief for spiritual focus and measured intervention for civil cohesion. Confessor Thane's sensor and Proctor Kellock's atmospheric dispersal units operate under matching theological and administrative frameworks. The Church sanctifies what the state systematizes, pharmaceutical governance blessed and budgeted through parallel bureaucracies. Hab Block 9 returns to docile productivity within 23 hours. Residual accreta concentrations maintain atmospheric compliance while dull feed saturation ensures continued chemical citizenship. Citizens emerge expressing gratitude for imperial protection during crisis, unaware their emotional responses result from neurochemical manipulation. Productivity metrics show 12% improvement over baseline. Chemical trauma producing enhanced compliance alongside temporary casualties. The audit concludes with institutional satisfaction. Senior Auditor Voss notes recommendations: enhanced atmospheric dispersal capacity, stronger dull feed concentrations, expanded VOP deployment authorization. Forms filed, casualties classified, protocols validated. The system functions as designed, chemical governance scaling pharmaceutical intervention to crisis proportions while maintaining administrative legitimacy. Worker penitent Jorik returns to Shrine Nave 47, lighting sanctified aloe while whispering gratitude for survival. The taste remains unchanged: ash and alkaloid, incense and industrial solvent, faith and opiate, indistinguishable through institutional design rather than accident. In the Imperium of Man, mercy arrives measured in milligrams, administered through atmospheric saturation, recorded in ledgers that transform suffering into statistics. Master formulator Kellogg chants the litany of measured grace while calibrating Acrita content for evening service. 0.7 milligrams per cubic meter scaled to congregation density. Opiate resins selected for pastoral requirements. His brass scales bear Mechanicus blessing runes beside Ministorum purity seals, weighing salvation in grams while servo skulls record dosage hymns. Somnia for grief, dulcis for panic, tar black soot for obedience. Each resin chosen like saints' names, matched to spiritual need through pharmaceutical precision. Cardinal Voss's letter, centuries old and yellowed with age, authorizes increased concentrations during times of imperial crisis and wartime necessity. The Tarsus sector has remained technically at war for 4 centuries. The authorization never faced rescission. Current Acrita levels exceed peacetime liturgical standards by 340% under permanent crisis classification. Theological justification, supporting pharmaceutical escalation through bureaucratic permanence. Guild factor. Thorn's Botanical Endowments fund shrine operations through chemical kickbacks disguised as devotional contributions. The economic loop closes through sanctified commerce. Obscura processing yields support. Poor relief. Synthetic euphoriants maintain choirs. Detox in surplus. Finances shrine repairs. Thorn's ledger lists contributions beside purity ratings. Chemical purity correlating with spiritual worthiness through accounting practices that blur commerce with confession. Confession rates spike by 67% following heavy vapor services, atmospheric saturation, producing enhanced spiritual receptivity alongside neurochemical compliance. Productivity metrics climb proportionally the following week. The administratum's secular ledger benefiting from the same chemical interventions that fill confessionals. The rite of great soot perfuses entire districts before conscription announcements, Acrita-laden smoke rolling through hab blocks to ensure compliance through atmospheric governance. Citizens experience draft notifications as spiritual calling rather than legal compulsion. Indulgence Elcho sales complete the financial circuit. Each stick contains blessed tobacco mixed with mild euphoriants, generating revenue that funds shrine operations while providing regulated mood stabilization. Citizens purchase pharmaceutical salvation packaged with theological legitimacy, creating self-reinforcing cycles where chemical sales fund chemical production, spiritual commerce supporting pharmaceutical theology. The Hin spiritual language remains sincere. Confessor Thane believes deeply in the Emperor's mercy while administering measured Acrita doses. Shrine keepers pray fervently while calculating narcotic concentrations. The compounds produce measurable neurological effects, enhanced suggestibility, reduced anxiety, increased compliance, while participants experience genuine religious emotion. Miracles that can be weighed are not miracles. They are logistics pronounced sacred. Spook contamination increases among zealots seeking truer visions, synthetic hallucinogens promising enhanced communion with imperial divinity. The substance breaches warp barriers in susceptible minds, attracting attention from entities dwelling beyond reality's membrane. Sanction Psyker. Mordian collaborates uneasily with Ministorum authorities, containing breaches while blessing chemical formulations designed to prevent rather than enable psychic contact. The pharmaceutical theology walks razor edges between enhancement and catastrophe, salvation and damnation, measured in identical compounds administered through opposing intentions. Medikey files classify spook contamination through clinical progression. Stage 1. Enhanced perception. Subjects reporting heightened sensory input while pupils dilate beyond physiological parameters. Stage 2. Precognitive episodes manifesting as temporal displacement during prayer services. Religious ecstasy indistinguishable from psychic breach. Stage 3. Auditory intrusion from the warp. Voices speaking through ventilation systems in pre-imperial dialects. Stage 4. Reality breach. Subjects becoming conduits for entities wearing devotional masks while speaking in tongues that taste like industrial solvents. Spook's appeal spreads through pilgrim communities seeking truer visions of imperial divinity. Synthetic hallucinogen promises enhanced communion while breaching barriers between material reality and warp space. Zealots mistake neurochemical clarity for divine revelation, trading sanctioned pharmaceutical governance for illicit enlightenment. The substance sells easily. Sermons preach discernment, while vials offer it measured in milligrams. Black ships manifest first as rumors, then orbital shadows. Astropathic communications authorize containment protocols while citizens whisper of disappeared neighbors and sealed hab units. The Scholastica Psychana processes psychic contamination through administrative channels, forms classifying subjects as spiritually enhanced before reclassification as containment priorities. Sanctioned Psyker. Mordian explains the razor's edge between sacrament and summoning. Chemical enhancement opens doors, he states while blessing etched substitutions designed to prevent rather than enable psychic contact. Sacrament focuses the mind, summoning feeds appetite. The Emperor's light enters, but other things follow. His containment protocols read like exorcisms written by accountants. Dose limitations, calculated to milligram precision. Incense substitutions removing psychoactive compounds. Mandatory fasting regimens to reduce neurochemical receptivity. Pilgrim Cantor. Thane demonstrates the progression. Taking measured spook doses before leading evening hymns, his voice achieves frequencies resonating beyond acoustic possibility. The choir follows his pitch into ranges attracting attention from the other side, harmonies becoming invocations, songs becoming summons. Services end with mass spiritual episodes while atmospheric processors register electromagnetic anomalies. Callback payoff emerges from archived dossiers. Line Violet Courier Vex, whose contamination triggered Chapter 8's Cascade, bears guild factor classification, latent psyker, predating his employment by 17 months. His spook exposure was predictable, possibly deliberate. Chemical contamination designed to activate dormant psychic potential through systematic cultivation rather than accidental manifestation. Human cost itemizes through Medici reports. Mother Superior Kellogg restrains 6 parishioners experiencing Stage 3 contamination. Their enhanced prayers opening micro-breaches requiring constant hereticus intervention. Children whisper to electrical sockets. Small voices speaking to currents carrying more than power. Aged priests refuse etched-laced incense, choosing unmediated faith. Their pharmaceutical-free devotion producing psychic resonance requiring black ship processing. The mathematics remain clinical. Stage 1 subjects require monitoring. Stage 2 subjects require isolation. Stage 3 subjects require processing. Stage 4 subjects require elimination. Containment operates through pharmaceutical theology inverted. compounds suppressing psychic potential while maintaining religious compliance. The same akriti, producing salvation, preventing damnation. Cult Mechanicus treats bodies as platforms requiring chemical maintenance rather than vessels requiring salvation. Tech Adept Kellak demonstrates with clinical precision. Chem unguents reduce augmetic friction by 47%. Synthetic insulin analogs extend endurance beyond biological parameters. Pain shunts reroute sensation to optimize function while preserving operational capacity. The human form becomes machinery, blessed with lubricants, coolants, and performance enhancers measured in sacred ratios calculated through Binharic prayer. Servitors stabilize through sopor infusions administered via subcutaneous ports. Lobotomized brains requiring pharmaceutical maintenance to prevent system crashes. Along injection rails, they receive nutrient paste, sopor drips, and shock resets when compliance drops below 92% efficiency. Skitari cycle combat chemicals according to schedules optimized for battlefield performance. Frenzone during assault phases, detoxin during recovery intervals, analgesics calibrated to maintain function without compromising tactical awareness. Magos Mordian demonstrates cogitator correlations between sedation indices and industrial throughput. His data screens display green productivity curves overlaid with blue narcotic concentrations, revealing perfect mathematical harmony until red failure thresholds. Maximum docility produces optimal output without catastrophic system collapse. The equations echo administratum audits, while catechisms mirror ecclesiarch rites. Different vocabularies describing identical control mechanisms. Payoff revelation crystallizes through jurisdictional archaeology. Akrita bears licensed Mechanicus pharmaceutical designation MX7741. Originally developed for servitor maintenance before liturgical adaptation. Tithe codes like Sequim exist to blur institutional boundaries by design. The same compounds flowing through Mechanicus production lines, mini-storum sensors, and administratum atmospheric processors under different classifications. Chemical governance operates through shared infrastructure disguised as separate bureaucracies. ChemGeld production lines demonstrate logical endpoints. Laborers sign contracts surrendering biological drives, appetite, reproduction, sleep, in exchange for pharmaceutical substitutes that liberate flesh for pure duty. Workers receive synthetic nutrition, chemical satisfaction, induced rest cycles, calibrated to production schedules. They cease being human while remaining functional. Biological machinery optimized through contractual surrender of organic needs. Tech priest Voss explains the theological framework with mechanical precision. Sacred oils anoint injection sites while Binharic hymns calculate optimal concentrations. Prayer and chemistry merge through mathematical devotion. Blessed is the mind too small for doubt becomes blessed is the dose too measured for resistance. His workshop processes human upgrades like equipment maintenance, installing chemical ports alongside mechanical augmentations. The Omnissiah's catechisms blend seamlessly with pharmaceutical protocols. Bodies and machines require identical care. Lubrication, fuel, occasional replacement of worn components. The only difference lies in documentation. Organic systems use medical forms while mechanical systems use maintenance logs. Dry observation from the archive. The Omnissiah accepts all prayers, provided they are precisely measured and chemically enhanced. Resistance begins with a bucket and charcoal. In Hab Block 9, worker penitent Jorik's wife, Mira, filters dull-feed water through scraps of burned ration wrap, whispering the litany of small endurances while removing 30% of mood suppressants. The process requires patience. Water dripping through blackened grit while children sleep. Their son, Kyle, experiences nightmares for the first time in months, crying with unmedicated emotion that echoes through corridors accustomed to chemical quiet. Arguments return to their kitchen, sentences extending beyond pharmaceutical truncation. It is not revolution. It is memory. Minds remembering how to refuse. Mothers pool recaf rations in cloth purses, 3 days allocation equaling a single bribe. At Medicaid Station 47, they negotiate with servitors for reduced Akrita concentrations during childbirth, wanting to experience labor without institutional mercy, pain unfiltered by administrative anesthesia. The births proceed with screaming that carries through hab walls, raw human sound in spaces designed for chemical compliance. Some mothers die from complications that Akrita prevents. Others emerge holding children born into brief windows of unmedicated consciousness before chemical citizenship begins. Veteran Sergeant Kane teaches Red Rule inversion in barracks shadows. Share one stim between two soldiers, he whispers, demonstrating needle technique that violates ordnance while preserving lives. A single ampule, divided, creates bonds stronger than individual chemical enhancement, shared dependency becoming shared resistance. The practice spreads infection alongside solidarity, commissars labeling it theft while soldiers call it survival. Shrine keepers practice kinder heresies during evening processions. They slip inert censers into liturgical lines, brass aquilas containing blessed oils without psychoactive compounds. For 12 minutes, neighborhoods breathe unmedicated air. Conversations bloom beyond measured responses. A widower remembers his wife's laugh without cotton wadding. Children ask questions that require unscripted answers. The next sensor carries standard Akrita concentrations, sealing thoughts back inside compliant skulls. When Sequim shipments fail, Line Violet adapts through placebo commerce. Obscura becomes flavored ash. Indulgence Elosho transforms into dried herbs, smoked for ritual rather than effect. The first nights bring tremors and withdrawal rage. Then some discover ceremony alone provides psychological comfort, injection rhythms, bitter tastes. Shared chemical communion matter more than neurochemical effects. Addiction to process survives absence of substance. The cost accumulates in unmarked graves at Sump Gate 3. Enforcers discover filtration systems during routine inspections. Summary executions follow within hours. Medisai, who reduce Akrita, face Hereticus investigation. Soldiers sharing stims trigger commissariat intervention. The Imperium labels these acts heretical while they function as civic maintenance, pressure valves preventing complete psychological collapse under pharmaceutical governance. The slow strike builds no barricades, storms no precincts. It reclaims sleep without sedatives, steals moments of sobriety, preserves fragments of unmediated consciousness between shifts. Productivity metrics dip imperceptibly. Quarrel frequencies increase. Petition submissions appear in neat script before vanishing from administrative boards. For 17 days, sections of Tarsus think in voices not chemically modulated. The system self-corrects with bureaucratic precision. Line Violet raids resume under enhanced protocols. Sub-Prior Kellogg transfers problematic shrine keepers to penal assignments. Guild Factor accounts balance through emergency requisitions. Depot 11 clears backlogs. Sequim 77 finally arrives. Akrita returns to therapeutic concentrations. Dull feed flows unfiltered while atmospheric processors resume standard chemical governance. Within 23 hours, Hab Block 9 exhales back into pharmaceutical normalcy. The bucket returns beneath Jorik's cot. The sieve dries beside his catechism. Resistance reduces to memory and scars, a mother's unmedicated tears, a veteran's shared needle, a shrine keeper's empty censer swinging through incense-free air. The vein rises beneath trembling skin as catechism provides metronomic rhythm for injection. In trenches that smell of cordite and burnt offerings, a guardsman whispers the litany of steady hands, while frenzen flows like sacrament into muscle. One bead, one breath, one plunge, the needle answers prayer with pharmaceutical precision. Elsewhere, in Shrine Nave 47, worker penitent Jorik lights sanctified low. Beneath the same cracked aquila, coughing through incense that maintains productive calm and obedient fear. 2 citizens receiving chemical communion, their devotion measured in milligrams. The thesis crystallizes with institutional precision. In the Imperium of Man, narcotics represent fulfillment of the only promise reliably kept, relief that arrives on schedule. Faith promises salvation, but delivers silence. Law promises justice, but delivers compliance. Industry promises prosperity, but delivers quotas. Only chemistry delivers what it advertises: measured mercy, calibrated comfort, anesthesia, administered with bureaucratic punctuality. Faith, law, and industry share pharmaceutical recipes through administrative convergence. Akrita functions as mercy in ministorum sensors, compliance in Arbite's atmospheric dispersal, productivity optimization in Mechanicus maintenance protocols. The same compounds flow through different bureaucracies under matching authorizations, what the ecclesiarchy calls anodining of the meek. The Arbites designate OpRed 141. The Administratum classifies as Sequim. The Mechanicus catalogs as MX 7741. Anesthesia administered as statecraft, sedation deployed as governance, chemical citizenship enforced through institutional coordination. The procedural creed reads as liturgical instruction. OpRed 141's authorization transformed into imperial catechism. Dose according to need, disperse according to protocol, report according to regulation, repent according to doctrine. No rescue offered, no salvation promised beyond measured relief, administered through atmospheric saturation. Only survival rules for breathing in a burning cosmos, where chemistry provides the only reliable sanctuary. Citizens learn the grammar of pharmaceutical governance: tolerance tiers, metabolic citizenship, chemical transaction. Replacing spiritual communion. Jorik crushes the spent Elo stick between thumb and forefinger, ash mixing with alkaloid residue on his tongue. The taste remains unchanged from morning's first breath: pennies and burnt resin, industrial solvent and incense, faith and opiate, indistinguishable through institutional design. Behind the altar, fresh authorization bears administratum seals: temporary moral anesthesia, authorized for civil cohesion. The smoke dissipates according to atmospheric flowcharts. The shift begins according to productivity schedules. Chemical governance continues with imperial precision. Even resistance adopts pharmaceutical grammar. The bucket beneath Jorik's cot remains empty. The charcoal sieve gathers dust beside his catechism. Memory becomes contraband requiring suppression. Citizens remembering unmedicated thoughts as heretical luxury, unfiltered emotions as spiritual weakness. The system functions as designed: chemical governance, scaling pharmaceutical intervention to civilizational proportions while maintaining administrative legitimacy. In the 41st millennium, ash on tongue, taste unchanged. The only sacrament that arrives punctually, the only mercy that functions as advertised. Chemical relief has become the only prayer that produces measurable results. Not salvation, but sedation. Not hope, but pharmaceutical peace administered through measured doses, reported according to regulation, blessed according to doctrine.